Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 119 of the RRBG podcast. This episode is brought to you by Hofbräu US. It's that time of the year. Oktoberfest is around. I'm drinking one of the Oktoberfest beers right now. It's seriously my favorite style of beer. I love this time of the year. And I want to thank them for sending me a case. That was fantastic. Really appreciate it. Check them out online on Instagram at Hofbräu US, or visit one of their many locations, especially my personal favorite location, the Las Vegas one. Also, if you get a chance, please check out patreon.com/RRBG and support the podcast. Sign up, and for just $5, you can get access to exclusive interviews and, coming up soon, exclusive merch as well. Patreon.com/RRBG. In this episode, I talked to Kevin Hufnagel. He's a guitarist in the band Dysrhythmia. He's also in the band Gorguts and a whole bunch of other projects, including his solo project. Dysrhythmia has a new record coming out October 4th called Terminal Threshold. It'll be out on Translation Lost Records. You can go to their website right now and pre-order the vinyl. It's really pretty. We talk about that album and its creation. We talk about Kevin's writing process. We talk about some of his other projects and some of his other hobbies, including movies. I had a great time talking to him, and I hope you guys enjoy. Please check them out. Pre-order the record now on their Bandcamp, and follow Kevin on Instagram at Kevin Hufnagel. Cheers. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RRBG podcast. I'm here with Kevin Hufnagel of many, many bands, dude. You have, right now, Dysrhythmia coming out with a new record in October 4th, am I right?
Yeah, October 4th, yeah.
Very cool. Tell me a little bit about the process. I know it's been a few years. I know 2016 was the last one, The Veil of Control. The new album's called Terminal Threshold.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about it.
It was tough to write at first. It always gets tougher as we kind of go on with each record, just because, you keep trying to find new ways to challenge yourself. And for me, this is the band that I've been doing the longest, out of all my bands. And so, every time feels like it's an exciting challenge, but it's like always a little bit daunting at first. And I kind of had a hard time getting started on this record. And I wasn't sure even if I had any juice left in me, It's like I didn't want to stop the band, but I also was like, things weren't coming so easily at first, or things were coming, but it sounded too much like the last record to me, and it would have been easy to just kind of write more riffs in that style and keep going in that direction, but and didn't want that. So really it was Colin, our bass player, who kind of helped me get back in the groove again. He kind of wrote a song first. I was discouraged, and I kind of mentioned that to the guys, and instead of getting bummed themselves, they kind of just, Colin took it upon himself to be like, well, I'll write something on bass, so he wrote something first and sent it to me, and then I started digging into that and writing parts for it, and then started getting Jeff involved in the drums, and we had one song done, and I was like, all right, this is a start, and then I just decided, I was like, let's make, it's kind of start off with more of like a concept, like let's write shorter songs, there's sort of these very like simple ideas, like shorter songs than last time, and maybe faster songs than last time, and maybe like slightly simpler songs than last time, and there's these kind of like general concepts, and that kind of really works for me these days with like all my bands, is like kind of coming up with just a general direction, just a verbal direction before there's even any music sometimes, kind of helps me kind of just get started, if I have
get the fire lit,
Yeah. So, so then, once we got started, it kind of started to move pretty fast. And then probably, about like 8 months ago or something, we started playing these songs live for the first time, and response was really really positive. And that, of course, always is encouraging. And And then recording the record was super fun. It was easier than last time. Last time the music was more complicated. I was, getting more frustrated with like my takes. It's not good enough, whatever. This time, just felt more laid back and stuff just kind of flowed. I just felt like there was just more energy this time. I'm still really happy with the last record, but this is just has a lot more energy to it, or it's just maybe more immediate. So I'm happy with it. And I think people hopefully will be all as well when they hear it.
I think so. I mean, I enjoyed the song I heard, the one that's up on Bandcamp right now, and it's one of those things.
Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get the whole record yet. I should have had somebody send you the record. I don't even know if they're sending out promos yet, but
I may have gotten an email about it. I'll check it later, but
okay.
If not, I'll get my hands on it for sure. But I wanted. It's one of those things. Like you guys write incredibly technical music, and it's got to get to that point. Like it's got to feel a little, like you said, daunting to try and come up with newer ways. Like for anyone that hasn't heard the band, I mean, it's very experimental. You guys kind of have like songs where there's just blast beats, but then there's just technical, people call it noodling or meedling on top of this like blast beat. So it's like the technical, just a lot of arpeggios, a lot of just, you guys basically cover all the bases in like in one song in terms of all the notes and riffs. So coming up with something even more challenging or even more, I guess, technical than that, it gets crazy. You gotta sometimes take a step back, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the goal isn't always to get more and more technical with every record. It's just to find new ways of approaching what we do. We're never going to be one of those bands that radically changes direction and suddenly makes a blues record or something like that, like
Get a
total
vocalist.
genre shift. We're never going to add a vocalist. I mean, it's funny. Like I usually like to think like, I make music without boundaries and rules. But sometimes, with certain projects, there are these kind of things where it's just like, Dysrhythmia is never going to have a singer. It's just, that's one limitation I actually like to put on the band. It will just always be an instrumental band, because that's cool. Because then sometimes having limitations is good in some ways, because it makes you kind of have to do more with less options. But yeah, for me, it's not always about being more technical. I actually think this record is simpler than the last one. Maybe technically, if I get nerdy about it, but I think we tried some different things on this record. Like Colin's playing guitar instead of bass on 3 out of the 8 songs.
Nice.
Which is interesting for, that was kind of new for us. So those songs have no bass, so at first I was like a little bit unsure about that. I was like, we're going to have these songs with no bass. Is that going to sound less heavy, than the songs with bass? It's just going to be lacking that low end. And it's funny when you listen to the record, people don't even notice. And the few people have heard it, already, it's not that noticeable. Unless you really focus on it, because there's other ways of covering the low end, like the drums, the floor toms and stuff, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that changing this kind of, I guess, like you said, a little bit simpler, less technicality, like, do you consider that, because the type of music you guys are doing, I like to call it like musicians' music, where like most of the people that are like dissecting this are just other musicians that are like freaked out at the technicality of it. It's not your typical like radio rock stuff that you're going to hear, if you put on the radio. Like you're not going to hear music or melody, like not music. You're not going to hear singing or any kind of, anything that you can sing along with. There's no head banging to like a specific, it's not verse, chorus. You guys are going, it's very progressive and experimental. So do you think that while breaking it down, making it a little more, like a little simpler, is that going to piss people off, like the elitists? Be like, they're getting too simple.
I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I mean, I don't think that's. I kind of don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, when I was younger, man, I remember my favorite bands that were more on the intricate side, kind of simplifying their things, and I would get bummed when I was younger, like in high school, when bands would start simplifying their once intricate music. Nowadays, I totally understand. It's just. I don't think those bands were trying to sell out a lot of times, I think they just wanted to try something different, and I think as you get older, you're actually more attracted. I don't know, maybe in general, you start to become more attracted to sort of taking things back to basics again, but with all the experience that you've gained throughout your years. I mean, that's kind of where I guess Dysrhythmia is at right now. It's like, there are sort of actual, if you listen to the new record, especially, there are these sort of A-B-A kind of structures sometimes, almost like verse chorus kind of things, but there's no singing. But it's like riff 1, riff 2, riff 1 again. But the thing is we try to disguise, like when riffs come back again, they're always a little bit tweaked differently, or maybe I'm playing the same riff, but the rhythm section is doing a totally different part that they didn't do over my riff the first time. So it sort of disguises things a little bit.
Yeah.
That something is actually coming back again, and I really get a kick out of working that way. This more like theme and variation kind of approach, like bringing things back again, but they're not quite the same as the first time kind of thing. That's kind of, yeah, instead of having like a million part riff after riff after riff, like we don't really write that way anymore. We actually, usually our songs lately only have maybe some songs might have, like 7 or more different sections, but a lot of them, we're kind of working with sometimes like 5 different sections in a song, so things are coming back again, but they're a little bit different every time they come back and stuff like that. I think that makes for more memorable songs. I do want it to still be catchy in a way. I'm not like looking to be catchy, but for me, when I'm writing songs, I wanna enjoy listening to them too myself. I don't want to just make this like super heady music that maybe it's interesting on paper, but nobody actually wants to listen to more than once or something. I want people to come back to it, and I want to have fun playing it too. So I want to have fun playing it is kind of like this balance of like keeping myself interested musically. So for me, that's making things, somewhat intricate maybe, but also like not so complicated as like that it's like totally not fun to play.
For sure.
Because we've gone that direction too sometimes with some songs where it's just like, God, like this song sounds really cool, like if I'm not playing it, but like playing it's like so much work. It's like you can't even enjoy it sometimes,
Yeah, and the super tech fans, they don't realize that you're trying to put on a performance on stage as well, and if you're concentrated on not fucking up, or missing a note or anything like that, it doesn't really leave, especially with your music, it doesn't leave a lot of room for you to just kind of have fun and like headbang a little bit and like move around even just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I think live, we try to be as accurate as possible, but I don't mind. None of us really mind like flubbing a note. And you know what I mean? Like it's all part of the live experience. And I think our drummer Jeff is particularly great at that. He, for me, like I've watched him play in other bands, like just watch him play drums like in his other band Xevious, and it's just so much fun for me to watch him play. Because even when he's concentrating really hard, it's so visceral and it's so much fun to watch. It's not like boring, even though he's like very concentrated.
Right.
And I think that's what still, even when we've had those shows where we've had to stand a little bit more still because the material's new and we're trying to concentrate. I'm hoping that still people are engaged watching us because it's.
Well, hopefully they're like
we're
me,
not like jumping off the rafters or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you're staring at, like me, I get fascinated when I see like ridiculous feats of musicianship, just like staring at you pulling off these notes in certain rhythms and time. That to me is enough, but you also have to
but for your average concert goer, it's probably not.
Right.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, sure.
And that's another thing that tech fans, they forget about, and it's just the fundamentals of having a decent hook somewhere in there. The importance of having something that later on when you're at home doing dishes or whatever, you're singing that little riff or whatever in your head, and that's what gets you to go back like, oh, you know what, I want to hear that song.
Exactly. I wanted to have some replay value. Yeah.
Right. And I noticed the artwork is different as well compared to the previous releases. This is a little more colorful. It almost inspired by, it looks like, or it reminded me of Fantastic Planet, the movie.
Yeah.
Is that the theme that you guys are going for, or what's up with that?
Yeah, we knew we wanted something different, really different this time for the artwork, something that was a lot more eye-catching and not quite as minimal. And in the past, we always had pretty minimal album covers. Usually, for the past couple of records, it's just been very minimal, like just photos I've taken, just simple stuff. And this time I was like, man, the music's pretty different this time, and so we should just make the art very different this time. And Yeah, the whole vibe of the record, I mean, is kind of this panicky, you know. I think it's very much a reflection of the times, you know, the sort of anxiety about this day and age we're living in, and like, where the fuck is this planet headed, you know, and what's going on, you know. And I think the music sounds like that, you know, so we wanted something a little bit more dramatic to illustrate that, you know, with the cover. So the artist, his name is Terry Grow. People are probably most familiar with him through his stuff with Behold Octopus. He's done a bunch of their covers, and you know, being that those two bands, Dysrhythmia and Behold, we share a member. It was my idea to ask Terry, but I asked Colin first because, like, I know he's done all the Behold stuff. I don't want to, if that's your thing, I don't want to, like, you know what I mean? I don't want to have people, like,
right. You don't want to step on any toes.
Confused even more between the two bands. You know?
Right.
You know, but Colin was totally cool with it, so I was like, okay. And I was like, let's just explain to Terry, like, you know, don't draw any skulls or any of the stuff like he did with Behold. Let's make it look different, you know. But and that's exactly what he did, you know. And I think people still recognize that it's his style, you know. But I think it looks different from the other stuff he's done with Behold. But yeah, I basically just gave him the album title. We sent him at that time just some rehearsal recordings of the songs, and I gave him all the song titles. And I was just like, just do your thing. Just like, you know, let these titles and the sound of this music influence what you see in your head, and what he did was perfect, you know. I mean, hardly had to change a thing. So it was great working with him. He worked so fast, you know, and any kind of little tweaks, any suggestions, he would just fix them right away, and it was just very easy to work with. And we just got the vinyls in, and they look amazing. So
yeah,
totally
dude, I'm looking at pictures now. You guys can pre-order on Translation Lost Records. And you got the really cool, like, splattery vinyls that match with the color scheme of the record album art. Yeah,
and we wanted to have gatefold this time because it was got the piece was drawn. You know, the front cover and the back cover are all one large piece. You know, so it's cool now with the gatefold. You can unfold it and look at the whole piece itself. You know, it's one thing. I almost wish we made a poster to include because it would look cool as a poster.
Well, now you can sell it at the shows.
Yeah, we're making shirts, you know, for the store coming up with the album cover, you know, using all like a, you know, 5-color print, so it'll look, you know, as colorful as the cover. So
nice, yeah. You can do those hand printed, you know, screen printed posters that they sell at concerts now for like $40. Just make a few of those and sign them and sell them for $40.
Yeah. I want to make tote bags. I mean, there's all these. That's what you got to do these days. I'm sure you got to be more creative with your merch.
Yeah, you got to get people to want to buy. I'm always on board for vinyl. You know what I mean? I will if I come to you, and I usually like to wait for the shows too. Sometimes I'll pre-order directly from the band because that's also important. But if they're in town or whatever, and I know they're going to have it on them, I'll just buy it there. It feels more like the money is going straight to you. You know
totally. I mean? You always need more money on tour, so that's really the best way to support bands is go see them live and buy something from the merch table for sure.
Yeah, man. I remember seeing you guys a while ago. I don't remember the year now, but it was with Intronaut and
Cynic?
I want to say Cynic. Yeah. And that was
back in 2010.
Night. Yeah, I was at the Culture Room, and I remember Colin was. I was hanging out with the Intronaut boys, and Colin just jumped in, and my buddy's like, "Aren't you the dude from Behold the Octopus?" And he's like, "Nope," and just passed a blunt over to him. Like,
really?
Nope, that's not me. I'm like, all right, I'll just stay quiet. Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, but you guys killed it, man. And I remember seeing you recently, maybe a year ago at the. What was it? Brain Tentacles and Intronaut as well?
Oh, yeah, with Gorguts. Yeah.
Gorguts, yeah.
Probably 2 years ago or 3 years ago. God. Yeah.
Time is passing by quick, huh?
It is insane.
Yeah, that was, you know, so I mentioned in the beginning, you're in a bunch of bands. You're in Gorguts as well. They haven't put out anything since 2016 either, and I felt like there was maybe something that happened there because that was also like the time where Dysrhythmia's last album. So was there like a time where you just took off for a couple years, just worked on solo stuff?
Well, let's see. I mean, Gorguts hasn't really been very active at all in like the past 2 years. I don't. Yeah, the last tour we did was 2 years ago. This back in last month. So During all that time, yeah, pretty much my other 3 bands I've been writing. Yeah, so obviously Dysrhythmia. My band Sabbath Assembly, I think, has put out 2 records in that time.
Nice.
And my other band Vora put out a record this year, so I was busy with that band. And then a couple of different solo things. I've been keeping super busy. I've been doing a lot of guest guitar solos on different people's records, and
Yeah, so you were like on a soundtrack too for
I did
Imitation
a
Girl?
soundtrack. Yeah, a movie called Imitation Girl. Yeah. Definitely keeping busy. Always have something to work on.
That's nuts. How do you? I mean, what's a day in the life like with you? Because there's so much information, there, especially with the band, the type of bands you're doing. Like Dysrhythmia has a million notes in a song. Like, how are you keeping track of all of this information?
Yeah. Well, I write everything down, meaning I tab everything out as I write music these days. I have to write it down on paper, or I just will not remember. I don't know how I kept all this stuff in my head. I mean, back in my 20s, when Dysrhythmia was kind of my only band, I was able to kind of like write songs and just kind of like remember how they all went with it, even as I was writing songs. I know I never wrote anything down on paper, but now I have to. So I have all these like tab books of all the records I've written in the past 10 years or something. I have tabs pretty much for all these songs. So that's great, because then when I want to, when one of my bands wants to go back and play an older song we haven't done in years, for me at least, I can go back and be like, oh, here are the tabs. Just got to practice again. But it's not like I got to figure it all out by ear, which is for me, like some of the songs, they're in alternate tunings, and I'm just like, God, this is, it'd be so hard to kind of figure it all out again by ear. So,
Very smart. Very smart to write it down.
Yeah, and I make little videos too of myself, just also so I don't forget things. Trying to keep all this in my head.
Yeah, did you go to school for this? Like, did you take music in Berkeley or something? Like,
I didn't go to Berkeley. But I did go to school for music. Yeah, it was called University of the Arts. It's in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah, just 4 years there, and that was it. And right after that, I started Dysrhythmia and to start touring right after that. But I went to school for jazz guitar, but took lots of other types of music classes while I was there. Studied composition like on the side, and classical guitar outside of school, and so.
Well, what were some of the things that got you, aside from just going to the school? Like, you obviously went to the school and picked up a guitar for a reason. So, like, what are some of your bigger influences? I mean, were your parents musicians as well, or?
My mom sort of was. I mean, she had a guitar, and she would, just play folk songs and stuff. She just kind of just strummy folk songs and would sing, but there was always a guitar around the house. So even from a real young age, I was attracted to this object that was just sitting in the corner of the living room. A lot of times, I'd just go and just hit it with my hand, and just to hear the strings like make a sound, And my mom was also always playing music around the house. She's just a huge music fan, So pretty early on, I was just surrounded by music, all different types of music, classical and disco and rock and everything, and liked it all, And then started watching MTV, and then once I was able to see people actually playing instruments, visually, I was like even more attracted to that, doing it myself, And so I finally got a guitar when I was 10 for Christmas, and then started taking lessons right away, and just kind of never stopped after that.
Wow.
As far as like early influences, I mean, I think really the first music I really remember hearing and loving was certain classical pieces, like the Peer Gynt Suite, which is by this composer named Grieg, and probably the most famous selection from that is In the Hall of the Mountain King. It's dun 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 dun, used in Fantasia. Actually, I think maybe seeing the movie Fantasia might have been how I discovered that. When I saw it as a kid or something. But all those dark, Night on Bald Mountain, all those classic, dark, evil, spooky sounding classical pieces were immediately, as a little kid, really made my ears perk up. I was like, I like the sound of this dark mood this music is making me feel. But then, as far as guitar goes, I think it was definitely hearing "Beat It" by Michael Jackson. Just around the house. I think a lot of people my age say that. I think that was like a really like important moment. That Eddie Van Halen guest solo on that song.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Was huge for me. Yeah, and so once I really started actually like buying music myself, like going and buying tapes at the store, it was all metal. I was just like a little metalhead kid. I always appreciated. I never stopped loving all the other kinds of music that I like too, but the metal was kind of like that was like my biggest passion musically, probably, especially as a youngster. That was all the I was buying lots of metal. Because it was so guitar oriented.
Do you remember the very first cassette you bought on your own when you were like with your money?
Yeah, I'm trying to I think about that often. I'm always trying to, like, what was it? I mean, I can't remember the actual first one. It was either, I mean, these are kind of embarrassing probably to say, but I think it was Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet.
Nice.
I think it might have been that tape.
Nice.
Just because I remember playing it on this crazy looking, it wasn't even a regular boombox. It was like some sort of weird, like, contraption that played cassettes, but it wasn't like a normal radio. But I do remember playing the Bon Jovi tape and that thing, so that had to be one of the first things I bought.
Nice.
And 86 was like the year I started buying lots of tapes. From what I remember, like Turbo by Judas Priest, had just come out.
Nice.
Quiet Riot's one of their records, I think it was called Free. Yeah, Motley Crue, all that stuff,
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that my family had a little bit of a collection, like little vinyl. They had those 7-inches with and I inherited all of them because they were gonna throw them out. I'm like, no, I'll keep that. And it's like Van Halen and Twisted Sister and Motley Crue and all these little 7-inches. But I remember my first cassette was, and this is obviously because I'm a little bit younger, but Pretty Hate Machine was my first cassette tape, and I remember buying it just because they told me not to.
Yeah.
And all the people I spoke to, they were like, "Don't buy that." I'm like, "I'm buying that. Fuck you."
Right. I definitely had that, rebellious phase as well, for sure.
Yeah, and Danzig followed after that. The Mother was a big deal. I actually took a lot of my musical tips from Beavis and Butthead as well. I feel like we're missing that these days. Like that kind of was a source of new music for certain people, like a certain demographic. And there isn't really anything like that on TV anymore because I guess people don't really watch TV now. It's all YouTube.
Yeah, now it's too overwhelming, the options. There's just too much out there to get your information from or whatever to find out what's the cool new music or like what's the interesting underground band now.
Yeah.
And that was what was kind of cool about Beavis and Butthead, even though they made fun of a lot of the, like, sometimes really great bands like Morbid Angel and Death and stuff.
Yeah.
It still was exposing people that during daytime television that was, watching that show who would never know about those bands, I'm sure lots of people disagreed with Beavis and Butthead when they were trashing a band, and probably wanted to go out and buy that Morbid Angel record or whatever,
Exactly. Yeah. It's still promotion. You're still playing that music on national television. So,
yeah.
I always appreciate it when it happens, even if it's not given the proper lighting. Even if I've seen on regular soap opera type shows, and some kid walks in during a scene wearing a Converge shirt. Like even that, I'm like, who do I have to high five in that production team? Because that was a good move.
Yeah. I mean, if I worked on one of those shows, I'd be doing that all the time. Yeah,
Hell
definitely. Yeah.
So if you were to do a project outside of the complete, everything you've done so far, you've done so many different projects. I looked up on Wikipedia. There's like 21 listed. So if you were to do a project that would, I guess, I don't know, something you've never done before, but that would be outside of the box for you, and you would want to, and you want to experiment with that, what would it be like?
With other musicians or something outside of music?
No, with music. Like,
just like other people I'd want to play with, or
and something out there. Like I've asked this question before, and someone will throw out like a Celine Dion. You know what I mean? Like something. What out of the world, out of your scene, would you pick?
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing is when I think about like who else do I want to collaborate with in my however many years I have left. There's actually a lot of I can think of like fantasy ones, like people that are like huge, that I'll probably never get to collaborate with, the fantasy ones. But then there's a lot still that actually are like people that live here in New York that are friends of mine that I think are just as amazing as like whoever these big fantasy collaborations are. That I also still want to collaborate too with. But it's funny you mentioned someone like a vocalist like Celine Dion. I mean, she's not one of them, but I think of vocalists usually first. I think because these days I'm not just doing instrumental music. I have my bands with vocalists. But for a long time I felt like I was just only doing instrumental music, and I really longed to work with a great singer. So,
okay.
So when I think about collaborations, a lot of times I'm thinking of like singers that I really admire that I think would be awesome to collaborate with, and there's a bunch that come to mind. Singers like David Sylvian, Brian Ferry, these kind of like more like crooner types almost, that just kind of do this very art pop, I guess you would say, kind of stuff.
Okay.
There's someone more younger and contemporary named Holly Herndon who just does like really insane, almost like sound collage, sound design, electronic music. She's a vocalist and just does crazy things with her voice. It's a lot of computer processing and complex like affected stuff. But I love her music. It just sounds super fresh to me and super futuristic, and there's no guitar in her stuff, so I'm always thinking, oh, it'd be cool to kind of not that these people would want it probably, but to add guitar
right.
To their ideas. I would think of someone like Bjork or something, too. She doesn't really have any guitar in her music, but she's so forward thinking, all the time with her output, and I just, I'd love to be a part of something like that, even if it's just like one song, It would be cool,
Would Bjork be your like the fantasy
totally
one?
Yeah, I guess that would be, all these ones I'm mentioning are sort of fantasy ones, but yeah, I guess she would be probably like she's the most popular maybe of all these people I'm talking about. Yeah. But even something like Madonna, I'm not like a huge Madonna fan, but I grew up listening to Madonna on the radio and stuff, and she has a couple of good songs, and I always thought it'd be interesting. I always like this idea of writing something really dark and something like you wouldn't really ever hear this singer normally sing on, and then having them as a guest or doing a collaboration where they just sing, this person as this pop star, but they're singing on something that's like so different than what they would normally do. That always kind of intrigues me, those kind of collaborations.
I'm into it, man. I every once in a while somebody will show me something. Like, I don't listen to Beyonce. I'm not, I'm a metalhead. I hear about her. I know she exists. I know that she's insanely popular and that she's a good singer. And then someone brought up this one song. They're like, just listen to this one song. It's completely different to everything else. And I know like there had to have been some kind of collaboration with someone that they were like, you know what, let's take a turn here and see what comes out. And I like it. Me
too. I would totally collaborate with, like, if someone presented me with that opportunity to collaborate with Beyonce, I wouldn't say no right away. I would hope that it wouldn't be something that they wrote and they just wanted me to play something that they also wrote for me, just like where I had no creative input. Wouldn't excite me very much. But if it was something where like, we want your creative input on this idea we have, and it's going to be on this huge singer's record, I would totally be open to it.
That's awesome.
I think that would be fun. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Usually it happens. I see it happens a lot with movies. They end up coming up with soundtracks where they'll combine different worlds. Like, I remember the Judgment Day.
The rap soundtrack. And metal kind of. Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, usually that's where you see it, But that's cool, dude. Yeah. That's cool. So let me ask you this. Do you think Gorguts will do something again, new?
I hope so. It's really Luke's baby, So I think I'm going to see him in a few weeks. We're Dysrhythmia and Bold Darkness are touring together, and we're playing Montreal. And he said he's coming out to the show, so it'll be good to catch up with him. But he kind of takes his time in between albums, Yeah, he just has a different process than maybe I do or something. He seems more okay to kind of let the guitar sit there for a while and kind of do other things. He has other things in his life he does too,
Sure.
besides music. So, whereas I'm just I have other interests, but God, like it is every day. It's just like all music, because besides playing in bands and writing, I'm also teaching guitar all day, too.
Wow.
So lately I'm just like always have a guitar in my hand, And I love it. It's great. I don't get sick of it.
So now, when you do have a little bit of free time, what are those other interests? Like, are you into video games? Are you into movies? Like, what is your thing?
Movies for sure. Yeah, I love going to see movies and fishing. I like outdoor activities.
Nice.
I grew up as a kid. I grew up throughout my middle school years in a cabin like right down the street from a lake. So I got really into fishing when I was a kid, and I still actually like to do that. But yeah, just kind of like nature excursions, hikes, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Things where that usually involve lots of silence.
Yeah.
When you're just around loud music all the time, or just playing guitar all day. It's nice. Usually I want to, and also I live in New York, so just everything's loud all around me all the time. So
Oh yeah, especially New York.
when
New
I take
York
a break,
is...
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it requires you to go outside. Like, you have to. You're living in this rush. A lot of people don't even have cars. They're just, either walking or taking the subway. And it's just a very hectic lifestyle comparatively. If you live, like, my band used to practice in Homestead, Florida, which is out in the sticks, basically, in the farmland. So that was nice, because we would just go out there and be peaceful with our music. But living in a city like that to create music, you do need that. You need that escape to just go camping somewhere,
Yeah, that's just my way of unwinding for sure.
That's awesome. What in terms of movies, are you a big like Marvel guy? Are you more independent type?
I like my taste in movies are pretty strange, because I like both extremes, and that I like really terrible B movie stuff, and then I love really serious, depressing art films. So, it runs the gamut. But I guess it'd be easier to say what I'm not as interested in is usually action films, like the kind of the sort of the things that are most of the time sort of the blockbuster type of movies. I just don't find that interesting, just like explosions and action. That sounds exciting, but for some reason I usually never have any desire to see those movies. Yeah, so I like a lot of just mostly independent cinema and art films, and then just really weird B movies and just things that are quirky and stuff like that.
Are you a fan of The Room?
I love The Room is great. I love The Room. And actually, while we're on the topic of The Room, there's another director out there that maybe some people are familiar with, who's even more just weird than Tommy Wiseau. His name's Neil Breen. And similar kind of thing where he does everything. He directs, he stars, like he writes, he does, he has like 1 million credits for himself on all his films.
Okay.
And there's these films that are, his acting is, very questionable, and so is the dialogue. Everything is you would just say is bad, but it's very entertaining, and it's really hard to tell if he is serious or not. I've watched a few interviews with him, and he really wants people to take his movies seriously, and he's like, these aren't B movies. Like, he's adamant about it. So it's hard to tell if it's performance art or is he serious? I do find his movies very entertaining. So that would be a great example of like films that are kind of like bad, but I think they're great. And particularly as this one movie called Fateful Findings. If you look, his stuff is hard. You have to order it from him. Like, he's really militant about like taking things off YouTube. I think he surveils YouTube and
oh boy,
just takes down when people upload clips or whole movies. He gets them taken down right away. And the only way you can get his stuff really is by ordering it directly through his website, and his website's like really terribly laid out, and it's really confusing to even figure out how to order something.
Oh,
And Colin, my bandmate, is like a huge fan of this guy in all his movies, and Colin buys his DVDs from his website, and they always take like a really long time to show up, and then when they show up, they're just like CDRs in a blank case. There's no cover, and it costs like $30 or something.
Amazing.
It's like totally insane. The guy's insane, but
oh, I love it. I love every minute of it.
Yeah. Look him up.
As the older I get, the more I appreciate this absurdity, like the Tommy Wiseau situation. Like, I had no idea. I started seeing like memes online. People were posting little pictures here and there, and I'm like, I guess if people say a movie is really bad, I'm gonna watch it because I need to see why it's so bad. Like they were trashing the new Fred Durst, John Travolta movie.
I was about to say that. I was just thinking that's going to be the next Room, probably.
Yeah, like everybody's like, oh, it's awful. I'm like, I'm downloading it today. Like, where can I see this?
I was thinking the same thing with that movie. Yeah, I was like, everyone hates this and says it's terrible now, but it's going to be like a midnight cult classic in like 20 years, I'm sure.
Dude, I gotta say, I saw the trailer. I wasn't I was just like, okay, I'll watch that. That looks okay. I mean, The Room, like I was saying, The Room. When I finally watched it, I couldn't stop laughing. And if you can cause that kind of reaction out of someone, then you're doing something right. Maybe you're not.
Oh yeah, I mean that might
not know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you. Like for me, that like maybe the equivalent is like making a record where it's like you were seriously making this music that you loved. You're like, I'm making this music that I want to hear. I don't know if anyone else likes it, but this is what I want to hear. And then you put out the record and everyone trashes it and hates it. But they hate it so much that you're like, well, I mean, at least it's still getting like a strong reaction. And it's not like people are just ignoring it or something or are different. So.
People are probably sick of hearing me talk about wrestling on this show, but it's it ties in with this right here, where the way that they, I don't know if you're familiar with pro wrestling, but there's good guys and bad guys, and you cheer the good guy, you boo the bad guy. If you come out and there is no reaction, that's when you know you're being terrible. But if you make them boo, then you're causing a reaction. Yeah, you're bad. It's bad, but you're the bad guy. Deal with it. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept that they talk about. Like if you come out and nobody's saying anything, then you're failing at your job. They're bored. Your job is to entertain. So it's a broad spectrum, but yes, it's not a job. Your art is to entertain. That's a better way to put it. Job sounds too too negative. But cool, man. Do you watch? You don't watch wrestling. You don't have time for that.
Not really. I mean, I did when I was a kid. So like I remember WWF and Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan, all those guys. Roddy Piper or something, right? That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, mostly from when I was like a little kid. I remember WWF, but that's about it. I don't remember I just remember some names and kind of what they look like, and occasionally I'd watch it on TV. Yeah.
They're pop culture characters. You can't ignore them sometimes. Like a lot of people, you can ask anybody who The Rock is and whether they like him or not. It doesn't matter. They know who The Rock is. He's the highest paid actor in all of those action movies. Oh, see, okay, that's what I was going to bring up earlier too about movies. I watched The Room. I love it. I'm very much into independent, crazy films as well, experimental films. But I'll definitely take a day off when I'm doing something else, like cleaning around the house or something, and I will throw on a Fast and Furious just because it's explosions. It's very well-filmed explosions.
A lot of people like that. Yeah, I know. I don't blame them. But just for some reason, this is not what if I'm going to pay, movies now are so expensive, it seems.
That's true, too. Movie theater tickets are $20 almost,
Yeah. So if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I mean, I'm going to see something, I really want to see. Or usually, I pick things where I know it's going to be. I mean, I guess seeing action movies is very exciting in a theater, certainly more so than watching it on your TV or whatever at home.
Sure, yeah. The explosions and the special effects and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get why people are drawn to those kinds of movies, but I guess I either like to be laughing the whole time throughout a movie or just feeling crushed emotionally. Both extremes of emotion,
Yeah.
I guess, are kind of what I like, so I also love Igmar Bergman films and stuff like that, which are very just, kind of dreary, but sometimes I like to just contemplate the life as I watch a movie, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. That happened to me with, and this is, it's not as, I mean, I guess it's a pretty dreary movie, but Requiem for a Dream, when I went to see that in theaters, and when I exited that theater, I was just not there. Like,
Oh yeah, I love being
mentally checked
transformed
out.
during it. Yeah, I love that. I kind of love that feeling where you step out of a theater and you feel like, is this world real right now? Like, what just happened?
Yeah, I love that stuff. Well, cool, dude. I want to thank you for taking some time to talk to me today. We're at like 45 minutes. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're busy.
No
So,
problem.
Dysrhythmia, Terminal Threshold, October
Mm-hmm.
4th. You can buy the
Yep.
records now. You can pre-order the records.
Yeah, you can pre-order from Translation Lost Records, their website. We'll have it up. It's already up on our Bandcamp. I mean, just for pre-order, we're just doing digital. But if you want the vinyl and the CD, go to Translation Lost and get it from them. Or we'll have it on tour as well if you can make it out to a show.
What is, I'm trying to look up now. I know you guys are hitting the road, right?
Yeah, it's a short tour. I mean, it's just it starts October 1st and only goes 9 days. So we end on the 9th in Brooklyn. So it's kind of just it's mostly just a northeastern kind of route. It's with 3 shows in Canada. So it's
I see.
like
Okay.
Rochester, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, then it's like Maine and Massachusetts, Connecticut, Brooklyn. Pretty much that route.
Are there plans for like a big tour, out west as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's Dysrhythmia used to tour really heavily, and I kind of sometimes wish we still could, but it's just getting older. It's just, with everyone having more responsibilities, and it's just harder to do those kind of long trips like we used to.
Yeah.
But we plan to, we really want to do more for this record than maybe we had for like the last couple. Just because we're really proud of this record, and I think these songs really go over well live, and we want to, get out there more this time. So I think we'll do more next year for sure. Probably still more of these little 1 to 2 week little excursions down different parts of the U.S. We'll probably do something down the southeast coast next maybe winter, late winter, early spring. We definitely plan to do a West Coast tour next year. Do the whole West Coast for 2 weeks or something.
The
I'd like to
Intronaut
get back
Boys
to Europe again.
The Intronaut Boys are going to be putting out an album there, so you guys
Right.
together would be good.
Yeah. We'd like to, of course, pair up with another band on the West Coast. To help with the draw and maybe share gear with.
Yeah, it makes the trip
too.
easier.
Yeah. It's so expensive for bands from anywhere to fly in and do a tour. On the opposite coast. It's just renting a vehicle and gear and all that stuff really adds up. But,
that's why it's important people support. Please pre-order the record. If you like the music, help the band out. You know how many times I talk to somebody and they're like, "Oh man, I love that band." I'm like, "You get the record?" Nah, fucking buy the record.
Yeah, the Spotify plays aren't enough.
No, man, it's not enough. You want the
Sustain
band to come to tour in your city, support them. That's how they do it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I really do appreciate you. If people want to follow on Instagram and Twitter, what's the best way to get Dysrhythmia information and best way to get information on what you got going on?
Well, there's kevinhufnagel.com. I actually have a .com site now.
Nice.
That's usually mainly just kind of what I'm up to, kind of with all the bands, but I guess mostly just my solo stuff. But for Dysrhythmia, I guess unfortunately it's just pretty much Facebook right now to get info on that.
Okay. There's no Instagram for them?
No, I guess I should make one. I was really slow to come around to Instagram. I only just, last year made one for myself. But I feel like I should make one for the band. I have to keep up with the times.
Yeah, Instagram seems to be like the leading platform for me anyway. In terms of the podcast, like it's the one that has the most followers and all of that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely like it more than Facebook. Even though I guess it's all the same. But
yeah, they're all owned by the same company.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But yeah, I mean, I definitely prefer just like the layout, and for me, it's actually Instagram's been really good for getting new guitar students. So that's definitely
Nice.
yeah, I should do one for the band. But anyway, for now, Facebook for Dysrhythmia, and pretty much all my other bands too. So
Very cool, man. Well, hey,
yep.
have a good day. Thanks again for taking some time out.
Great.
Appreciate
Thanks, buddy.
you. Cheers.
Take care. Cheers. Bye.